revenue beat, particularly impressive there on the Red Hat contribution. Well, we are less than 2 weeks from employee emergency unemployment benefits expiring, emergency, that is, and Congress is finally back in session this week negotiating the next coronavirus relief bill. Industries, including banks, airlines, and restaurants, have all launched massive lobbying campaigns vying for assistance in that bill. Joining us now is Bruce Melman. He's founding partner at Melman, Castanetti, and Rosen and Thomas. It's one of the largest lobbying firms in the United States, representing dozens of corporate clients from 3M to United Airlines. Bruce, it's good to have you on board. Just what does the lobbying scene and frenzy look like around this next stimulus that's coming out? How active have you guys been?
Well, gosh, folks have been active, my firm and every other firm. You know, as I'm sure you report all the time, a huge amount of the economy staying afloat right now, particularly given the failure to tame the disease here the way we have seen in other developed nations, is government support. And Congress's 4 previous corona packages, combined with what the Fed's doing, are very much the key to businesses surviving. There's probably one more package left in the next 2 weeks to 3 weeks that will be somewhere between $1 and $3 trillion. But a lot of businesses are worried that if they can't get support and the economy continues to struggle as a result of the disease, they're going to be extinguished.
There's a lot of struggle to go around, Bruce. How do you narrow down which industries and types of companies need it most?
Well, obviously, ultimately, it's Congress's decision. All businesses are in talking about the need for liability and the worry about a tsunami of lawsuits and what that could mean. You have many who are so clearly impacted, travel and tourism. You think of hotels, you think of airlines, where people are clearly not using their services. You can't work from home if you're talking about flying, for example. There's a lot of concern in the real estate industry about the fact that the forbearance against foreclosures, if they don't continue that and they don't find ways to keep mortgage servicers or real estate whole, there could be a lot of pain right there. The news industry, among others, probably not CNBC, but many in the news industry are in seeking support for government. It takes schools. Schools would like to reopen. It's better for particularly K-12 kids if they can reopen. And for universities, you may see a quarter of them go out of business if they're not able to reopen. And yet they need help. They weren't prepared. Government hasn't put in place the things that we've seen in some of the other countries like Germany or South Korea to allow us to necessarily safely reopen schools. The only alternative is to give them support.
So which sector, Bruce, as you look at it right now, do you think is most exposed that really needs some kind of further stimulus and at the moment, as the bills are shaping up, may not have it included?
Well, it's a double whammy sort of question. It feels to me that that travel and tourism is hurting about as bad as anybody I can think of. I think of myself, I'm going to go on driving vacations, but perhaps not to Europe right now. Of course, I'm an American. They wouldn't have me right now. I think Congress is well aware of that. Every member of Congress flies. Every member of Congress will stay at hotels. They all understand. Everyone has them in their district. They understand how important it is. I think the central dynamic on the next bill will be both sides want to support families. Democrats in particular want to make sure states and localities have enough money, or else we'll see more than 5 million people lose their jobs, a huge amount of pain in very unionized municipal workers. For Republicans, it's the liability question. I think they will come to a compromise on that. The question is how much more they're willing to spend and how far down the ranks of worthy businesses, worthy employers that people want to help. And that probably comes down to a question of the White House. The Senate Republicans left on their own would probably stop at $1 trillion in total. The House Democrats have already said they're happy to go to $3 and change trillion. And it's probably up to the White House and their sense of how much fiscal stimulus they want and need heading into the election.
What about small business, Bruce, especially ones that, can't afford big, fancy lobbying groups? I mean, I know they're represented in some places, but are we going to see another PPP program? And how are they expected to survive if they don't get the extra government money?
Well, I would start, Sarah, by noting I'm a small business as well. Not fancy, I hope. You're 100% right. The majority of businesses in America are small businesses. And to have a dynamic, competitive economy, you need small businesses to challenge the large ones. And one of the rare areas of bipartisan agreement these days is we've got to figure out ways to help and protect and keep afloat small businesses. You saw that with an extraordinary amount of money and additional money put out there. Right now, the program, the so-called PPP program through the Small Business Administration, has more dollars than demand at the moment. Some of that is the structuring and the nature of the program, where they had to spend originally 75% of the money only on payrolls when many of them had rents and other expenses. And we had all hoped and at times been reassured that it was only going to last a few months, and now it's lasting a lot longer. I think we will see probably some more money, but even more significantly, changing and easing of the rules to make the programs that have already been funded more accessible and less punitive for the small businesses that are finding it harder to get foot traffic for a while.
Bruce, do you think this bill is going to pass first time, or do you think there's the chance that it has to fail once or twice before it actually gets over the line?
Like TARP did in causing a 750-point market swoon. I think it will pass before they all drop the mic and head out of town for the August recess and political conventions. You know, whether or not the Senate has such goofy, arcane rules, it's very conceivable you'll see some number of tries before they finalize the sausages and they're ready for service to the customers. But I'm pretty confident this will pass, even if you have multiple days where you have to report that efforts failed, and you'll hear from leaders in both parties the sense that either they're going to go home or they're going to cancel their party conventions and stay in town. That's usually bluff. They'll get this done.
Bruce, you mentioned that your business itself was a small business. Did you take PPP money?
No, we didn't. We didn't ask for it. We're not seeking it. We don't need it, luckily, and we wouldn't like the look. There are a lot of really worthy and needy businesses, and thankfully we're not one of them.
Bruce, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today. Good to sort of see you again, Sarah.
Thanks, Bruce.